Hello and good morning. Welcome to the Collapse Experiment. This sounds a little off. Oh, there we go. That might be better. All right. No, why does Windows pop up at the worst possible time? Yes, remind me tomorrow how I don't want your product. Okay, welcome. Oh, the news that is not being news. That's a lot of what we're going to be covering today. First thing I will be going over is a video that you may want to check out on YouTube. It's called, it's on the channel called Redacted. Oh, come on. Here we go. And the video title is Pfizer Can't Hide This Anymore. Has to do with the dropping of files that were court ordered. Believe next month it's supposed to be a dump of 80,000 pages of information that was not released to the public, not released to Congress. They were trying to keep this under wraps for 50 plus years, and thankfully that didn't happen. So what we are learning is that recently, Pfizer released documents to shareholders, and some of the things that were revealed in that, but not released to the public, is that they are expecting a sudden drop of their stock holdings. They are expecting to lose about 50% of their income due to people not buying the vax. So, yeah, they're planning on losing some money, and it looks like a lot of their concern has to do with the release of certain information on side effects and lack of efficacy when it comes to how this product works. So, as more and more information comes out, things are not looking good for Pfizer. Quite frankly, I'm pretty happy about that. I'm not a fan of the company. I'm not a fan of people in particular who work for the company. It's just overall a crappy situation, and I still believe that there was a very cheap and affordable way of preventing / treating the pandemic, but nobody was going to profit from that. So yeah, I have a feeling that due to the release of these documents and the things that we're learning, now we're hearing from Fauci. He's saying that the pandemic is over, but we can't really what did he say? COVID's not going away. We're gonna everybody's gonna eventually get it. Well, that shouldn't have been your goal, dumbass. So, unless you're planning on keeping COVID off of Antarctica or the International Space Station, everyone was going to get it. So, yeah, there's that. I'm waiting for congressional hearings, but considering how many members of Congress profited from buying Pfizer stock at the beginning of the pandemic, I think they should all burn in hell too. So, yeah, has anything ever come out of congressional committees? Can anybody ever raise your hand, post in the anything that came out of a congressional committee? Did anyone get arrested? Were any charges filed? Did anybody ever go to prison, or did they just like wrap up the report and they're like, oh, well, we found that there was like some stuff that we didn't agree with, but nothing really illegal, just a bunch of people died. So, yeah, this is going to be another case of everybody gets screwed who got the jab, and Pfizer is still pushing for this immunity in their contract that they can't be sued. but the contract was written with the information being held from the government about the vaccine that they were signing the contract on. So, how can you have a contract when both parties are not informed? How can you have informed consent of one party over with another when the other party is not being openly transparent about the product that they're signing the contract on? And our government is too dumb to realize that. That is a video you should check out. Again, it's Pfizer Can't Hide This Anymore from the channel called Redacted with Natalie and Clayton Morris. About 10-15 minutes long. Very, very informative. They do show you actual parts of the document, highlight things of concern that should be telling us a hell of a lot about what's been going on with this medical product. Moving on. This was a piece on Zero Hedge, doom porn, and empty optimism. I found this it's not really a news piece, but it's by Tyler Durden. I suppose I should ask you now, do you know Tyler Durden? Okay, I'm not allowed to talk about it. So, anyways, actually, this was authored by Charles Hughes Smith via of Two Minds blog. That's a weird source, but hey, whatever. If we can't discern the difference between doom porn and investing in self-reliance, then solutions will continue to be out of reach. I'm often accused of calling 783 of the last two bubble pops, or was it 789? Forgive the imprecision. Like many others who have publicly ignored the notion that the status quo isn't exactly sustainable, despite its remarkable tenaciousness, I am pilloried as a doomer and gloomer, among other things. Okay, let's see here. This is a mischaracterization of my premise that whatever is unsustainable eventually unravels. I think for the most part that's true. We are not godlike, other than the Federal Reserve, of course, and so our heartfelt desire to render the unsustainable sustainable via the power of empty optimism will fail, as magical thinking can change our internal emotional state. Okay. This leaves us a choice. Either one, manage the unraveling with an eye on minimizing general adversity by investing our capital, resources, and labor in transitioning to a sustainable economic model. That's not going to happen. Let's be honest here. And two, squander our capital, resources, and labor on propping up the final terminal phase of a waste is growth, hyper-financialized, hyper-globalized, perversely corrupt, and unequal status quo in which the few exploit the many via their control of power and capital. That's pretty much where we're at. Although I have a feeling this model, if you take out hyper globalized, considering the amount of supply chain issues that we're having, I would argue that it's going to turn more localized and still have all the other bullshit in there, which is usually how desperate economies work. They just, like Easter Island, it had trees once. They cut them all down to make these fake gods that I guess ended up killing everybody. One analogy of this choice is pruning a fruit tree. If we let nature take its course, the most extended branch weighing down the most fruit will break off under its own weight, an ugly splintering that puts the tree at risk. The alternative approach is to prune the most extended branches and thin the fruit to what the tree can productively bear. That is my preferred approach to sustainable systems. Okay. And he goes on to have a few other ideas, and capital, resources, and labor will be revalued. So he's basically trying to lay out a plan as to what to do during our current collapse. This is just one small article, but there is a book by Michael Rupert called Collapse, where he kind of maps out things that we could be doing that we should have been doing ahead of time, like reinforcing our train, um, our railway system, um, trying to get away from petroleum as much as possible beforehand, like weaning off of it instead of this suddenly shutting off the tap like Biden is trying to do, which just kills more people in a short period of time. So, yeah, I mean, Biden didn't learn about, killing U.S. citizens from his previous buddy, did he? So, anyways, doom porn and empty optimism. It's an interesting article that you could check out at Zero Hedge. It's also at, I think it was, what was the other website? Of Two Minds blog. It's not even .blog. I don't know. Of Two Minds blog. Okay. So, let's see here. This is a news story that nobody is talking about. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised considering that the country involved here, Japan, is one of our allies. And if anything happens with Taiwan, it looks like financially they're in a situation. For one, they don't really have a military. They do have their defense force, but when it comes to military action, their people have zero experience. Yes, they have technology, but they don't really have a functioning military at the moment. So this is the other reason why they will not come to help us if shit goes down in Taiwan. Yen craters to 20-year low as BOJ stuns markets with daily fixed rate operations to defend the yuan. It has been a little over a month when we first laid out the big dilemma facing the Bank of Japan, which on one hand was hoping to avoid a currency collapse and prevent a crash on the yen. Oh, the yen. Sorry, not the yuan. While on the other hand, was also hoping to keep the 10-year yield below an extremely dovish 0.25%. Yeah, that's something I want to invest in. Curve control rate ceiling. The problem is that while the Bank of Japan can control one or the other, it can't control both. This is what we said then. Yeah, I'm not quoting your old stuff. Sure enough, the bank did test both outcomes, and after pushing the 10-year bond to the upper bound of the coordinated 0.25%, finding the Bank of Japan willing to defend Japanese yields from further spikes, decided to focus its hammering on the yen instead, pushing it to 2-decade lows. So now they're tinkering with their currency, trying to push back on inflation. So yeah, it's things are not financially going well in Japan. And they're starting to freak out. They've been through this before. If you look back in the 90s and see what happened with their deflation, they had too much money coming in, which also leads to other problems. So, yeah, they looking at everything as a whole, things go down in Taiwan. I can only we'll use the Okinawan military base, but when it comes to like Japan actually helping, they'll just kind of, they're already dealing with bullshit from Russia. So, here's another not really news, but a thought piece out of Zero Hedge. A mostly wind and solar powered U.S. economy is a dangerous fantasy. By not Tyler Durden, Francis Menton, the Gatestone Institute. Oh, when President Biden and other advocates of wind and solar generation speak, they appear to believe that the challenge posed is a matter of currently having too much fossil fuel generation and not enough solar and wind, and therefore accomplishing the transition to net zero would be a simple matter of building sufficient wind and solar facilities and having those facilities replace the current ones that use the fossil fuels. They are completely wrong about that. Ask Texas. The proposed transition to net zero via wind and solar power is not only not easy, but is a total fantasy. And it goes on to say, it doesn't matter whether you build 1,000,000 wind turbines and solar panels or 1,000,000,000 or 1,000,000,000,000 on a calm night, they will still produce nothing and will require full backup from some other source. That is true. If you propose a predominantly solar and wind electricity system where fossil fuel backup is banned, you must address the question of energy storage. I believe Musk is working on some project involving large batteries, but let's be honest here. There should be highly detailed engineering studies of how the transition can be accomplished, but the opposite is the case. It gets worse. Ken Gregory calculated the cost of such a system is well over $100 trillion before even getting to the question of whether battery technology exists that can store such amounts of energy for months on end and discharge the energy over additional months. Yes. And this is overall, I'd have to say that this is a fairly honest view on what's happening. A lot of people would say, well, we should still start investing in it and putting the energy into the grid, and then eventually we'll figure out how to make the batteries. And the same people that say that have no idea how to build a fucking battery. What do you mean there's FED? Moving on, Russia hoax. Durham staffer accidentally reveals emails showing coordination between Fusion GPS and media. Again, another news article that is getting zero traction, considering the content. Authored by Sundance via The Last Refuge. Another significant filing on John Durham's special counsel team to the court was made Monday, and you can read it off of Zero Hedge. Within the filing, the staff accidentally did not seal the attachments, which are emails between Fusion GPS and many major media outlets. Whoops! In a previous libel lawsuit by Alpha Bank against Fusion GPS, the Russian bank was able to get the internal emails between Fusion GPS and major media outlets as part of the lawsuit discovery phase. Despite the lawsuit failing to advance, those prior emails now become evidence for John Durham to use in the case against Clinton lawyer Michael Sussman. Michael Sussman, a Perkins Court lawyer, is accused of lying to the FBI about who he was working for when Sussman was trying to push the Trump-Russia collusion story to trigger an investigation. Former FBI legal counsel James Baker had said Sussman told the FBI he was operating independently as a concerned citizen. However, Sussman is defending himself by saying he never said he was not working for Clinton at the time he brought the FBI material, a demonstrable falsehood, and he was motivated by altruism unrelated to the efforts to help Clinton, another demonstrable falsehood. Yeah, they lied. They lied for it's still going on. There's still this whole like Trump was working for Russia bullshit. So what, 6-7 years the media overall has been lying to us, and this entire thing they're now saying was likely written up by Clinton, who apparently didn't even know her opponent because the whole PP tape, the guy is a germaphobe. It's one of the reasons he goes to McDonald's, because he's like, they have health standards and I can't be poisoned. So, yeah. I guess people are actually starting. Well, Clinton herself, she ended up having to pay a fine for releasing fake information. So, not that the small amount of money she had to pay really affected anything. I'm sure she just went out and found somebody in their jail cell and turned off the camera and took it out on them. Anyways, moving on Ukraine, Turkey walls fine. Bleh. Turkey walks fine line between NATO and Russia. To me, it appears like they're siding more with Russia than NATO, even though they're a member of NATO. Doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me, but whatever. This is by Adam Murrow via the Epoch Times. Turkey has proven adept in maintaining neutrality in regards to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, while Ankara has condemned Russia's special military operation. It has also declined to follow the lead of its NATO allies in supporting U.S.-led sanctions on Moscow. According to local experts, its reason for doing so are both economic and political and reflect Turkey's varied approach to its relations with Russia. Turkey is a neighbor to both countries with whom it has intense economic relations. So it is Ankara's interest to stay on good terms with them both. Turkey is in a weird position, not just politically, but also geographically. It's the gateway to Asia and the Middle East, for one. From Europe, it's in a horrible spot where it really it doesn't matter what side it takes, it can be screwed over either way. If it picks the wrong side, it's very easy for retaliation from the other side, if you know what I mean. And so I really don't see, and plus they started buying weapons from Russia. That was something that just started happening not that long ago. So they're definitely building up a friendship with Russia as well, even though they're part of NATO. Ties with Russia not black and white. That being said, the two implicitly foreign policy differences. Yeah, if Erdogan wasn't such an asshole, it at this point it'd just be really nice if there was an actual Kurdistan. The way that I guess northern Iraq is technically with Erbil being their capital, but there's still that part of Turkey where the Kurds get screwed over so bad there. All right. Well, it looks like we're running out of options on how to help Ukraine because Stinger missile production hit with delays. Raytheon CEO warns. I wonder what those delays could be. I mean, it could be like microchips, could it? Let's see. Stinger shoulder-fired missiles are in short supply, and increased production might not come online for a few years. Awesome. Let's just keep handing over the shit that we might need later. Genius. Kind of like that gas that we're shipping over to the EU. We might need that later. Genius. Raytheon Technologies Corporation revealed in a conference call with investors on Tuesday, Robert Spingarn from Milius Research asked Raytheon CEO Greg Hayes, will the Army replace the current 1,400 Stingers that were being sent to Ukraine? Hayes replied, Raytheon is currently producing Stingers for an international customer, but we have a very limited stock of material for Stinger production. I wonder why. The CEO added, DoD hasn't bought a Stinger in about 18 years, and some of the components are no longer commercially available. And so we're going to have to go out and redesign some of the electronics in the missile of the Seeker head. Hayes said it's going to take a little bit of time to ramp up production and doesn't expect DoD to place large replenishment orders for Stingers until 2023 or 2024. If we haven't bought Stingers in about 18 years, what are we spending our money on? It's just a thought. The Army recently sent out a request for a next-generation infrared homing surface-to-air missiles with plans to award a contract in the in 2023. I don't think that's supposed to be second quarter of 23. Though the new missiles won't be fielded until 2028. Oh, wow. I guess we should just start throwing rocks at these planes. Okay, so it doesn't go on to say anything about micro. It's just it's an old product, and a lot of the parts to make it are no longer being manufactured. And instead of just moving manufacturing to here, they're just like, we're not going to build them anymore. Former NATO commander disguises war propaganda as a novel. I thought this title was a little misleading because even I wrote a book about the U.S. going to war with China. It's called After the Day, and then there's a sequel to it called Red Tide, which actually has the Chinese invasion coming to the U.S. There's also Homefront, about what's going on the West Coast with the Chinese invasion in the U.S. in that series. Just putting that out there. This is by Patrick McFarland via the Libertarian Institute. On March 9th, 2021, a former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, Stavridis, co-authored a fiction novel with Elliot Ackerman. Now, this was 2021. Another former U.S. military officer. The book titled 2034, A Novel of the Next World War, imagines a kinetic war between the United States and China. Given the pedigree of its authorship, the novel provides a compelling window into the psychology of NATO's military leadership and, correspondingly, the foreign policy establishment behind it. To those familiar with said psychology, the events of the novel will not be surprising. Well, that's a nifty cover. Huh. It begins with a Chinese ambush of a U.S. vessel in the South China Sea. Plausible. An Iranian capture of a U.S. pilot. A full-scale naval battle between the U.S. and China, resulting in a total U.S. defeat. I had something like that in my book, and all these Navy guys were like, no, that's not even freaking possible. Your book sucks. Whatever. I don't care. You paid for it. I got your money. Huh. And the Russian invasion of Poland. Huh. The novel concludes with a limited nuclear exchange between the U.S. and China. Given the last few decades' hawkish hand-wringing about China and Russian cyber capabilities, the tactics employed in the novel are similarly unsurprising. A Chinese cyber attack disables U.S. hardware, allowing the naval route. Yeah, I don't think those Navy guys really thought about that. The Iranians, as allies of Russia and China, similarly disable U.S. aircraft. For their part, the Russians slice underwater communication cables, leading to a complete internet blackout in the West. Should I stop talking in case the Russians are hearing this and they're like, that is a good idea? Not that they haven't already thought of it. To an uncritical reader, the novel appears to be a cautionary tale and a warning against global conflict. The novel's dust jacket states, everything in 2034 is an imaginative exploitation from present-day facts, an aground combination with the author's years working in the highest and most satisfied levels of national security. Sometimes it takes a brilliant work of fiction to illuminate the most dire of warnings. 2034 is all too close at hand, and this cautionary tale presents the reader a dark yet possible future that we must do all we can to avoid. I don't know if I had actually read it, I don't know if I would have been sold on that. Mainstream outlets are as successful as their attempts to paint 2034 as a warning, as their reviews are cringe-worthy. Ooh, should we read the reviews? No, not reading the reviews. That's always a bad idea. Even when it's not your own book, it's not a good idea to read the reviews because, for the most part, people are assholes. Moving on. Map shows wildfire outbreaks sweeping across the U.S. amid mega drought. Mega drought. Yeah. All right. And, I'm seeing some wildfires in Michigan. But that is like, oh, it's just Detroit. They must be including Devil's Night in this. But yeah, a ton of wildfire. What is with all these fires in the breadbasket? That's concerning. Isn't Florida a little wet for wildfires? I don't know. Let's see here. That's Montana. Yeah, so there's quite a few fires on this map already. New data from NASA's Fire Information for Resource Management Systems, FARMS, shows an outbreak of wildfires sweeping across the country. FIRM's interactive map shows wildfire activity is expanding in the country's southeast, midwest, southwest regions amid one of the worst mega droughts in 1,200 years. National Interagency Fire Center, NIFC, released an update Wednesday, said that more than 3,700 wildland firefighters and personnel are assigned to 11 major fires. Well, it's only 11 at the moment. I mean, that's not bad. So yeah, we're looking at along with aren't they having, I'm seeing wildfires in the Dakotas, but aren't they supposed to be having flooding right now? So it's interesting. All right, moving on. Germany supports gradual EU ban on Russian oil as Moscow rejects gas payment from seized trading unit. I should probably add here that yes, gas was shut off to Poland and Bulgaria because they're refusing to pay in the ruble. And now people are saying, well, this is blackmail. How can they do this? Why do they have to trade in any currency outside of their own currency? It doesn't make any sense. Hey, if these people want to have a ban on Russian oil, I guess they should realize as to what they are looking at as a repercussion. Like this, otherwise, this just doesn't make any sense. As the EU attempts to impose unity amid the still fast escalating gas for ruble standoff, the potential full-blown energy crisis, Germany has said for the first time it is ready to back a gradual ban on Russian oil. I don't believe this is the first time. This was posted yesterday. I believe they've said that the entire time, that they wanted to do it gradually and not all of a sudden like every other country is stating. I think they've been very open and vocal about this. As detailed in a breaking Bloomberg report, Berlin would support a phased approach to targeting oil rather than some of the other options that have been discussed, such as a price cap for payment mechanisms to withhold parts of Moscow's revenue, according to people familiar with talks among EU ambassadors. So, Russia's major gas bank rejected a payment from a trading firm that Germany seized from Moscow's control. The first sign of friction following a takeover amid a broader regional energy dispute. Let's see here. Uh-oh. Meanwhile, at Gazprom headquarters in Berlin, Germany, it's just they're removing the gas, and they're removing the letters from the building. So yeah, they I feel like Germany is kind of in a tough spot, just like Turkey is, because a good part of their economy is based on getting this Russian oil. So that's a sticky situation. And the last, the last article, and this is beautiful. I need to get one of those shirts that has George Orwell on it that says something like "If I told you so" was a person, or "Did I get it right?" or something to that effect. Or yeah, this is from the Post Millennial. Breaking: Biden administration creates disinformation governance board under DHS to fight misinformation. Department of Homeland Security. Has there ever been a more useless group of people put together by the government? Can you think of any? I mean, the ATF, at least they go out shooting people's dogs. The FBI, they're trying to create their own work by convincing other people to do things that they themselves thought of. Meanwhile, letting actual terrorists go. So they're doing stuff. But as for DHS, have they successfully stopped any domestic terrorist attack in the last 20 years since they've been created? Anyone has put them in even after this video is done and you're watching this, put them in the comment section. Has DHS done anything? Or are they just a bunch of welfare queens who are completely useless to this nation? The Department of Homeland Security is setting up a new board designed to counter misinformation related to Homeland Security. Huh, who would have thought that? With a focus specifically on Russia. Really? You're bringing up the whole fucking Russian thing again. Awesome. And irregular migration. The board would be called the Disinformation Governance Board. No, it's called the Thought Police. You're not allowed to ask questions. This isn't approved. You're not allowed to say this. We'll ask Elon to take you off Twitter. It will be headed by Executive Director Nina Jankowicz. Speaking with the House Appropriations DHS subcommittee on Wednesday afternoon, DHS Secretary Mayorkas said, our Undersecretary for Policy, Bob Silvers, is co-chair with our Principal Deputy General Counsel Gaskell in leading a just recently constituted disinformation governance board. So the goal is to bring the resources of the department together to address this threat. Just remember, they're continually stealing your data, your information. Just a thought. They are constantly monitoring and collecting all this shit. If you think you deleted that tweet, think again. President Biden has decided the federal government will launch a disinformation governance board under the authority of Homeland Security. Did you just think that they would let you have free speech back? Jack Persilbic, and he is correct. Yeah. And then Jankowicz also oversaw Russia and Belarus programs on the National Democratic Institute. She announced the new board via Twitter on Wednesday. Democratic National. Okay. Cat's out of the bag. Here's what's been up for the last 2 months. Why we've been a bit quiet over here. Honored to be serving in the Biden administration, helping shape our counter disinformation efforts. Yeah, that's also called being a horrible human being. You should probably quit and say that this job is pointless. And we have a First Amendment. The First Amendment, okay? No, it doesn't apply to foreign adversaries, but yeah, that's not who you're policing. It'll end up being American citizens who are simply asking questions or putting theories out there like China's not locked down because of COVID. I'm just putting that out there. I don't necessarily believe it, but all the evidence I'm seeing, it's a pretty valid theory. It's not COVID. It's something else. And again, when were they ever honest about COVID to begin with? They weren't in the beginning. That's okay. That's established. So you have this new virus out there. They're freaking out, but they're not freaking out. No, we have everything under control. It's fine. But no, this new thing in Shanghai, I don't think it's COVID. Her view about elections, whether foreign or domestic, are that they aren't an end point, but are an inflection point, and that the policies of social media companies as regards to free speech need to reflect that. What the fuck does this have to do with an election? If they still have to fight if their goal is to still push the idea that Biden is a legitimate president, what does that tell you? You're not allowed to question that election. Why? Because we might learn something? Yeah. And did I mention that this, I'm not going to assume her. It looks like a dude. I'm just going to say that with long hair, possibly taking testosterone supplement. I don't know. But yeah, this person who's now the head of the Thought Police for Homeland Security. Wait, what is this? DHS head of Disinformation Governance Board. Quote, free speech versus censorship framing is a false dichotomy. And that came from Jankowicz. Free speech versus censorship framing is a false dichotomy. Okay. So, yeah, apparently she doesn't see any difference between censorship and free speech. It's all on how you frame it, and that's who's leading this new group. Awesome. Anyways, that's about all I have for today. To sum things up, gas was cut off of Poland and Belarus. Pfizer has been royally screwing everybody for 2 years. Cheers to that. Absolutely nothing will get done about it. Too many people in Congress profited off the deal. And as I said before, they can all burn in hell. So there is that. Cutting this short, I guess. And if there's no questions, keep on typing.